Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPaWrites here again, and today I wanted to rank all of the weapons that released alongside the Witch Queen, Season of the Risen, and the Vowed Disciple raid in Destiny 2 recently, and all of these weapons are pretty well used by this point. We're heading into Season 17, and I wanted to give my thoughts and opinions on where they stand going forward and which ones you definitely need to have going into next season. Now, a lot of these weapons are good, but ranking them against each other is where we're going to get the best idea on which ones are going to work well for your builds going forward. Now, some of them, if we get Solar 3.0 next season, are going to maybe go up a tier, down a tier, all that kind of good stuff. But overall, this is where they stand. First up is Ragnhild. I'm not going to go too in-depth on all these, just give general thoughts. Ragnhild as a shotgun is fine. I don't see it being used that often. We really aren't in a shotgun swap meta where you can use this with like 1-2 punch or anything like that. However, it's fine. It's not terrible. It's a world drop. You can't craft it, so getting a really good roll is kind of hard. But Reckless Endangerment, I'm going to put that at B. It's a good seasonal weapon. Obviously, it's not as broken as past seasonal ritual weapons, but overall, solid option. Good rolls, guaranteed you can get it, whether it's from Gambit Strikes or Crucible, so accessibility is definitely easy with this one. Empirical Evidence, I love sidearms, right? I'm a big fan of them. I think this is D tier. It's one of my least favorite sidearms in the game. I do not enjoy it whatsoever, and I just can't use it for whatever reason. It doesn't work well for PvE or PvE, in my personal opinion, and so for that reason, I am out on that. It's one of those that I wish was better because it, again, good sidearms are a lot of fun, but this one just does not hit right for me personally. So that's just a personal preference. Now we have the Silicon Aroma, which is a really good sniper, but not. None of the snipers really stood out this season, and that's really unfortunate. All of them are good, but not great. We haven't had a sniper meta in PvE for quite some time, and PvE, all the snipers kind of run together depending on which ones you favor with your sight, snapshot, all that kind of good stuff. It'll be very interesting to see where they fall once we do have the changes to snapshot sights and those kind of things. Now we've got Thoughtless. I think it falls right in the same line. I think it's craftable, so you can get a really good roll pretty easily if you put in the time. So for that reason, it's going up into B. I think Silicon Aroma is a better sniper personally, but Thoughtless is better to get the roll that you want. It's so much easier. So for that reason, it bumps up a little bit. Forensic Nightmare. This one is unfortunate because it's not a bad SMG. It's just so overshadowed by the other SMGs that dropped this season that it just falls by the wayside. So I'm going to put it in C tier. It's not terrible. It's not the best SMG we've had. It's just not up to the standard of some of the other SMGs, and that's why it falls down for sure quite a bit. And this is a perfect example. Submission. I think Submission is S tier. It's my favorite SMG to be released this season, and I love it. And that's saying a lot because we've had a lot of banger SMGs. We had the Title. We had the just some other really great options. So for that reason, I think Submission and the raid weapons in general are all really, really good. And so for that reason, that's why it gets bumped up. Next up, we have the Come to Pass Auto Rifle. This one, unfortunately, does not do it for me at all. The seasonal weapons, the Witch Queen location weapons, I should say, were not really big hits for me personally. And especially because you have another ARC AR in the Sweet Sorrow that, in my opinion, is just better. I know it's the archetype problem because this one just feels clunky come to pass. Sweet Sorrow just feels a lot better, and that's why it gets jumped up into B tier and come to pass as in C tier for me. PvE come to pass is just not it, and then PvE, neither PvE or PvP. It really shines, and so for that reason, it's knocked down. It's not terrible, but it's also not the best option. Now we have the Under Your Skin bow. This is A tier for me. It's void. It works really well with the void builds this season that were dropped. Its bows are obviously very, very useful. You have the anti-barrier bows, and overall, I think this one's really good. You can craft it, you can get a great roll on it, and not everyone loves bows, but I think this one is actually really, really good and one that most people should be farming for, especially if you're doing things like Grandmaster Nightfalls, Master Raids, all that kind of good stuff. They hit hard. They unlimited ammo. This one is void, no brainer up at A tier. Duty Bound. This one I think is going to fall B as well. It's Nightfall weapon, so it makes it harder to farm. Um, Overall, I think it's good, but not something that people are really dying to seek out. I don't think it's one that is like when that week rolls around, everyone's jumping on the Grandmaster, and for that reason, I think it falls a little bit behind. Even though I think overall it is a very, very good auto rifle, but it's just hard to farm. Not really. It's not better than something like the Summoner or any other number of auto rifles that you can use instead. So for that reason, this drops down a little bit. Likely Suspect. This one is going to be right in B tier as well. And then the Snorri. These two get compared a lot because they're kind of in the same role, even though they're different archetypes. Likely Suspect is better, in my opinion, because you can craft it, you can farm it, you can get the exact role you want. Snorri can be good in certain situations, but overall, I think Likely Suspect is just better, especially when you can get enhanced perks on it. So that's the difference for me. Snorri is good, though. I think if you get a good roll on it, it can be really, really solid. And overall, I think also the archetype difference comes down to personal preference. So for that reason, it goes right in the B tier. But I have the Likely Suspect above the Snorri personally. Now we get to the glaives, blueberries, and don't ignore. I didn't make this tier list, so ignore this glaive tier right here because I don't agree with that whatsoever. As we're looking down at this, Blueberry's Ruin is actually pretty good. Unfortunately, glaives I think launched a little bit underwhelming for what we wanted, but I think once you get the playstyle down, they're very, very good. I actually have blueberries at C and then the Enigma at B, and the reason for that, Enigma is obviously far easier to get the role you want. You can craft this from the raid, but it's rather difficult. Blueberries is also Solar. So next season for Solar 3.0, it might shine. It might be much, much better. But it just really didn't have a role. Whereas at least with the Enigma, you could run it with volatile rounds. You could set up nice builds with that. And it just made life a lot easier with the Enigma compared to Lubrays. Although I think overall Lubrays is better if you just compare them side to side. But because of the advantages the Enigma has and how easy it is to get a great roll on it, it gets bumped up into B tier. Now we've got the grenade launchers, and these are actually really good. I'm going to put both of these in the A tier. Now, we've got explosive personality and forbearance. Now, the reason I have explosive personality on the same level as forbearance, I think forbearance is better overall, but explosive personality is just so much easier to obtain, to craft, to level, and to get the role that you want. You also will get lots of rolls just by running the seasonal activity. So because of that, it's just so much easier to get and to have that it jumps up a little bit in rank. Although both of these are very good, you can make some really nice builds with grenade launchers right now. And ultimately, I think it depends on your role for a lot of these. If you get a cracked roll on either of these, it's going to be great and you can build around it for sure. But otherwise, they're pretty comparable as far as how well they perform. Obviously, one is arc and one is solar. They're both wave frame, which again, I really like wave frames. I've been running the exotic wave frame quite a bit this season. So the Kentana, I don't like this gun. I know people run it. I know people really like it. I think it's bad. I don't like it whatsoever. I would, if I was running a hand cannon, I would put this here. I just think that's overall, it's better. Crisis Inverted is better. I don't think any of the hand cannons are that great this season, but I'm also not somebody who runs hand cannons in PvP. So in PvE, they're just not my favorite thing right now. So for that reason, they're kind of lower on the tier list. Although I know hand cannon lovers will have those a lot more. Frontier's Cry is another one that it's my least favorite gun using it this entire season. I might be the exception here, but personally, I think it is not good. It's just not. I don't know. I don't know. The feel is off. I used to love the old hand cannon from Gambit that was in the same archetype, but this one just feels bad to me, and I can't explain that. Insidious goes right there. I think it's really good. I think it's one of the best weapons in the game right now. And it's a shame that not a lot of people have it just because it's an absolute monster. PvE, PvP, it's so much fun. And I think everybody should try to snag that bad boy if you can. It's phenomenal. And yeah, overall I think it's just really, really good. Is it like if I was to compare these two, like both of these would be in my kit pretty much all the time. So if I don't have one on me, I might have the other on me. So that's my personal opinion on those the raid weapons this season. I think were very, very good, and I'm surprised not more people don't farm them because of how good they really are. Next, we have the Herod. The Herod is interesting because it is stasis, and so that can add a lot of variety to the build. However, it just feels chunky, and so it's going to be down at C tier for me personally. It's just not a weapon that I use that often because even though I could make a stasis build around it, especially if you get something like Headstone, but it just doesn't. It just feels too the 360s just feel a little bit too clunky for me personally when I'm using them. The Ogma. The Ogma is good. I'm gonna put it at B tier. This you can't farm it or anything really. It's just a world drop, so that makes it a little bit hard. Pointed Inquiry is right here. I also think this one is a bit underrated here. But then Aisha's Embrace. So Ogma's the Solar Pulse. Again, this one might jump up in usage once we have Solar 3.0. Pointed Inquiry is a Void Scout Rifle, which obviously this season has been very, very good. And then, but Aisha's Embrace, man, that's a weapon I've kind of fallen in love with. I think it's amazing, especially if you get a good roll. They made it kind of farmable a little bit more for in trials this season, so I like that as well. But overall, Aisha's Embrace is really, really good. Pointing Inquiry, if you get the right roll, if you craft it, is good. And then Ogma is obviously a pulse rifle meta is really solid right now. So I think that one kind of shines, and I would definitely check out the Ogma, especially going into Solar 3.0. Now we have another sidearm that I am immensely disappointed in, just because it just feels bad to me. Like there's no point in using it for me personally. Like there's no reason I would use this over pretty much any other sidearm or any other weapon in that slot, and the redback is just the worst. Probably my least favorite gun in the entire season. I said it was Frontier's Cry, but I think it is a redback. I forgot about that one. So just not great. This is Father Sin, another one, sniper rifle that really doesn't stand out. I know some people really like it. I like Thoughtless and Silicon better personally. I think Father Sin is fine as a sniper rifle, and maybe with sniper changes and ammo economy changes, we'll see a little bit different. Same thing with Fugate. All these sniper rifles kind of depend on feel of whether you like the sights, whether you get a good roll. Obviously, Father Sin is actually farmable with the crafting, but I don't care for any of them that much, and they're pretty much useless and not useless, but they're not super useful in PvE at the moment, which is very unfortunate. Funnel Web. This one, as soon as it dropped, was S tier. This was the go-to weapon for a lot of people. When the raid first dropped, it was carrying builds for a lot of the season. Obviously, now we have other options. We have the title that came up, and we do have the raid options as well. But overall, Funnel Web is phenomenal. So I really, really like it. Next up, we have grenade launchers, and this is getting into the heavy slot. These grenade launchers are fine, but grenade launchers in general can use a buff. We've got the Tarnation and the Typhon here. I'm gonna be real honest. I barely used the Tarnation at all this season. Like, not even barely touched it. I used the Typhon a little bit. I think that could fall in the C tier. But neither of them has really shined for me personally. And part of the reason is the next slide. Cataclysmic, I think it is, actually. Yeah. Phenomenal. S tier. One of my favorites. I use it in PvE. I use it in PvP. It's just so good. I absolutely love it, and it is solar, so I'm looking forward to incorporating it into my solar 3.0 builds. Yeah, just really, really good. Overall, I think linear fusions are in a great spot right now. Grenade launchers are in a bad spot right now, and that's something that I hope changes over time, and we get into a little bit more of a fair balance between them, because I'd love to use grenade launchers a bit more. Maybe not as much as when they were fully meta, but okay. Now we have the crate. The crate is the, I'm gonna put this at A tier as well. Crate is the best AR in my opinion this season. It is stasis. It can get headstone. It can work really, really well with a lot of stasis builds. Very good weapon, and one that I think everybody should be checking out. Not everyone likes the fast firing auto rifles, but for me personally, I think it's very good, and I would definitely recommend it. Now we have the Recurrent Impact. This unfortunately is D tier right now. It does have headstone. It is a stasis machine gun, but until LMGs get the buff next season, it's not good. Hopefully, I kept a couple that will. Well, I kept a crafted one that I can make a nice build with, but overall, it's fine and not the best. Just because of where machine guns are at the moment. Now we have Palmyra and we have the red herring. Red herring I don't like at all because it doesn't have intrinsic tracking. Palmyra is fine, but again, if you're gonna use a rocket, you're probably using Gallahorn right now, and overall they're okay. Like, C tier is gonna be the most populated list just because I feel like a lot of things are going to be average, and then we're gonna have a few outliers up top and down below. Now we've got Razor's Edge. This is one that I was really excited about, and unfortunately, it did not live up to the hype for me personally. I have other swords that are better. It's fine. It's not terrible. It's not great, but it can be fun to use. I like the spin the win aspect, but overall, not as good as I would have loved. Fell Terradiddle. This is a good bow. This is a good bow. This will fall firmly in the B tier. Again, kinetic bow, nice, not terrible, not great. I mean, I say that it's good. It's actually really good, and it can fit in a lot of different builds. And overall, bows are in a great spot, so that's why it's in B tier. This Deliverance. Now, a lot of people like the Deliverance, and I love it. I have Chill Clip on one. I have some other options. Again, it's a raid weapon, so it's a little bit harder to get for some people. Overall, I think the raid weapons were so well done this season. Now we've got the Bane of the Crucible, which is the peace of mind. I I think this is one of the best weapons to drop this season as far as PvP goes. It's dominating there. The reason being is obviously you can craft the perfect roll. You can, it's easily accessible. You're going to see it everywhere. And pulse rifles are just in a great spot right now. I would put it A tier. I don't think it performs nearly as well in PvE, so that's why it drops down a little bit. Whereas the top ones, you can use these pretty much everywhere, in my personal opinion. This one, this is hard because, like, when this first dropped, I was in on the syncopation, but as the season has gone on, I've kind of, other options have risen up, and it's definitely dropped down a bit for me personally. Just not not it. The Persis, I think this one's a bit underrated. I'm gonna put it up at B tier, and it is stasis, so that's nice. But overall, it's not great, not terrible. Same thing with Fortismo. I mean, I don't like this one at all personally. I think it is there's just so many other shotguns outshine it, and overall, I probably would barely ever use the Fortismo. Now, overall, let me know what your thoughts are on this. I think it's pretty accurate as far as the meta goes. If you look at both PvE and PvP, I know not everybody looks at the combination of the two, but me personally, since I play both quite a bit, I do like to look on both sides and kind of give a fair comparison on where they stand in both metas, and that's why some weapons might be higher or lower than you would expect, especially like something like Peace of Mind, which is so dominant in PvP, but again, I don't see it being used all that often in PvE. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. My name is JoPaWrites. Hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Helps me out tremendously. I'm going to have loads of content jumping into Season 17, which drops next week, and I am so excited for that. Make sure you hit that notification bell if you haven't already, and I'll catch you all later.